They say that good things come to those who wait, such as negative LFT tests. Liam Gallagher's latest musical offering, Everything's Electric. Aston Villa next playing. Fortunately, that's later this week against Leeds. But something that you do not need to wait for, that's here right now, is our latest Talk of the Trinity offering, where we preview the upcoming Leeds game. So sit back, relax, hit subscribe, because this is Talk of the Trinity.
Hello and welcome to the latest edition of Talk of the Trinity. I am Baz Barrett. With me is Mr. Talk of the Trinity himself, Will Forrest, here for a break, really, after manning the Twitter page at Talk Trinity, updating the YouTube channel. We have a new name for the YouTube channel now, don't we? Is it Talk of the Trinity now?
Yep.
We've bowed to public demand to have the same name for our visual and audio entertainment. So we are going there one step at a time. So go and check out the videos we got on there, because there hasn't been too much happening in the last couple of weeks since the game against Everton. I mean, you've had our transfer window special part 2, which no doubt you've devoured by now, and our regular Twitter polls to pass the time. But before we get on to what we're really all here for, the preview of the Leeds game, football being back at Villa Park. There has been some football taking place at Villa Park over the last week or so during the enforced break. A couple of friendly games. Villa beat Brentford 2-1. Kind of, maybe you could say Brentford's reserve team. But nice for Ollie Watkins to get a goal against his former team, Tyrone Mings. Gets on the score sheet as well. I don't really have too much more to say kind of about that game. I mean, the Villa official report, I don't think he even released a team. So I don't think we're meant to be taking too much away from that game. So
I mean, Ming scored, but he's still not as good as as good as Conser, is he? You know, in the eyes of 75% of the fan base, I'm told.
It depends who you ask, you know, and I'm sure we'll be asking again during the upcoming rest of the season. But it was, you know, it's always nice to have a comeback win, even if it's a friendly. But a game whereby we didn't have to come back and win was against Mould on Saturday afternoon, 3-1 win. Nice goal from Jacob Ramsey, getting the fans on Twitter excited. Chukwuemeka had a hand in at least one of the goals, looking solid. McGinn, nice finish from him. Watkins again on the score sheet.
Yeah, good header.
Yeah, and we'll ignore Mould's goal. But, you know, it's nice to get a win. And when you're looking for scraps when the first team isn't playing in any official competitions, you got to take it where you can. So for Villa, 2 wins, you know, it's always better than 2 defeats. But, you know, in terms of can't really take too much out of it. Although it was probably nice for Callum Chambers to reacquaint himself with what a football pitch looks like. So good news for him. We'll ignore him getting overloaded for the Mould goal. But people who were playing in slightly more competitive games recently were our South American cohort. Philip Coutinho, decent finish, wasn't it? Decent.
Quality goal, absolutely. That's what you expect from Philip Coutinho, isn't it? Really, you know, those top bin bangers. Let's see a little bit more of that at Villa Park, if you don't mind.
Well, yeah, hopefully there is plenty more where that came from. And speaking of plenty more where that came from, debut for Buendia for Argentina. His recent good form for Villa being rewarded. Always a good time to hit the front in a World Cup year. So hopefully those two can carry on the momentum with their respective international teams and increase the number of villains in the World Cup squads later on in the year. And no doubt we'll be having our say nearer the time as regards whether England, for example, could benefit with maybe Hendry Conter, because he's great. But he is great. That was, I didn't mean that to sound sarcastic, because he's actually really good. So, or whether there'll be the dark horse of Jake, or whether there will be calls for any more Villa players to come in to the team, to the squad. There's always place for one who you don't necessarily think of in a year, in the year leading up to the World Cup squad. But, you know, that is for another day, because we are still steamrolling through the present, and we have had some of our younger players go out on loan. You've been making friends on the Twitter page, Will, with a certain Villa player making waves at Grimsby recently.
Yeah. Well, we tweeted to say how well Arjen Reike has been doing, and he liked the tweet, which is always nice. To see somebody of his calibre and stature and connection to Aston Villa doing that, you know. The other week on his debut, he particularly played well, getting 2 assists, one from a fantastically flighted free kick. But yeah, he seems to be, he's getting regular first team football. You've got Finn Azaz, who's doing well at Newport. Newport are flying at the moment. Tyreek Wright has gone out on loan to Colchester. Got a few minutes. Philip Marshall, he's up at Gateshead, you know. Louis Barry's gone back out to Swindon, obviously because they did so well with Kessler and looked after him a lot. That's why we got those good connections there. Kessler himself didn't make it onto the pitch at MK Dons, but he's there and ready to fight for his place. And of course, we've got the contrast of 2 forwards that are out on loan. Caleb Chukwuemeka, who hasn't really been ripping up trees at Livingston.
He did get on the pitch, just not for very long.
No, and he got subbed at half-time on his debut as well, but he has been impressed in training, apparently. And then, of course, you've got Cameron Archer, who Championship loan was a great shout by yourself on one of the recent podcasts.
I do.
One of these, so check them all out.
Yep, I do have them occasionally, and you have to listen to all of them to find the one decent call that I've got.
But you know, he bags a goal against West Brom, which puts him in high regard up here, and it's a winning goal, which puts him it's off the screen. And then he goes and scores a brilliant finish against Hull, because it was a great run. He started the move, the ball came out, and then you watch him just hold his position in line with the Hull left back, so that he was onside, and a great quality finish. You know, come back next season, see if you can do it in the first team.
Yeah, and you know, decent opposition. You know, in the Championship, you know, it's a good physical battle down there, as well as in, you know, place for skillful players to be able to show that they're a cut above, like Bundir at Norwich last season. Different position, but there is scope for more than just a physical lad kind of up front. You know, there is room for the skillful players to shine. And speaking of West Brom, they have had a announcement linked to a former Villa manager, Steve Bruce, taking charge of West Brom. I'm sure you wish him all the best, and West Brom all the best, Will, in terms of over there at the Hawthorns.
I wish Steve Bruce all the best. You know, Steve Bruce did a very good job for us, really, didn't he? He helped rebuild the club. He set a good foundation for Dino, and then Dino, in turn, built on that, ready for Gerrard. Steve Bruce, yeah, like the bloke, he's gone down a little bit in my estimations, but I'm happy for him. I'm happy to see him back in work. He's completed the tour of the Midlands pretty much, hasn't he, of the clubs that matter. He did that anyway when he came to us. Just got Wolves to go.
Yep.
Yeah, I'm sure he'll get them back up and firing and in the playoff mix, you know, at the end of the season. I know they're there at the moment, but I'm sure they'll be solidified there at the end of the season. And hopefully they come up so we can whoop them.
Yep, you know, it's always good to have a guaranteed 6 points on the table. And Bruce is a proven Championship manager. So, yeah, a sensible appointment at West Brom, if not necessarily one that sets the pulses racing. But
Yeah, you can imagine that Robert Snodgrass is probably a bit gutted that he's been released now.
Well, his agent might be on the phone for a reunion. But going from Championship to Champions League, there has been continued talk after the transfer window shut about the future of Matt Cash, and linked with Atletico Madrid, Champions League regulars and, well, winners of La Liga. So, there's been discussions about the fees. There's previous in terms of Diego Simeone purchasing a English right back with the cliche of better going forward than defensively, and Simeone being able to improve the defensive side of the game. Seems like they're serious discussions really in relation to Cash. I mean, I think at the start there may have been feeling that it was kind of a random name generator, but the links are real. I think we have to say that definitely on the shortlist. Not saying it's definitely going to happen, but what are your thoughts on the Matt Cash links in terms of, there's a big debate really, I'd say, amongst Villa fans. His first choice right back for Villa, ever present when he's been available. One of the better performers since he's come into the club. Contrast against that is the fact that we haven't got any other right backs, so he is going to be playing. Defensively, not quite as good as going forward, and going forward, perhaps not quite the number of assists you would expect from an attacking fullback. Where do you sit? Do we take Cash for Cash?
It's an intriguing one, isn't it? Really, because like I said, Matt Cash, when he joined us, he didn't. People were happy to be signing an up and coming fullback, but I don't think they thought that he'd do as well as he did. They probably also thought that the price tag at the time, which was circa 14, 16 million, was probably a little bit on the higher side. But he has done very well. He's adapted well to the Premier League. I don't think his defending is as bad as everybody makes out. Okay, there are times where I've mentioned to you that he does seem to lack a desire to get back. He leaves it to John McGinn to drop in as a right back. Man City, when we played against them, was a real highlight of that. He loves to get forward. He makes some great runs for some lovely through balls. He likes to get in between the centre backs and the full backs and not just always hang out wide. I think with Matt Cash, as you mentioned as well, he's a 7 out of 10 player, isn't he, at the moment, in regards to there's definitely some improvement that could be done there. But he's a very good player who was being touted for an England call-up before he decided to play for Poland. Yep. He has a lot of competition at right back. I think it's a golden generation of right backs, really, for England at the moment.
Yeah, there is about 426 in the lineup, potentially. And 424 of them get called up to every England squad.
Well, yeah, when you've got 4 that are going to the World Cup or the European Championships, whatever it was, European Championships, and you don't get in as one of those 4, you probably start to worry a little bit. I think from a Matt Cash point of view, if Atletico come knocking, he'd be silly not to go over there. Okay, the wages in that probably won't be as much as he could earn in the Premier League, and potentially even at us. I know Atletico tend to get Champions League every year. They had a bit of a wobble earlier this season. I'm not too sure where they are in the league at the moment. It'd be good for him. It'd be very good for him. And I think if we can get 35 million plus, that would be good for us. I'd imagine anything above 30 really would be good. However, we don't need to sell him. Atletico Madrid do need to buy a right back. So really, it's all in our hands, isn't it? And if you do get rid of him, you've got to think who comes in. Freddie Gilbert has been doing fantastically at Strasbourg, so maybe he comes back and takes a place and impresses Gerrard. Kessler could be a bit too soon for him. I'd have thought they'd have kept him round if they were thinking that he was ready rather than sending him out on loan to a League One team. If he was going to go out on loan and they thought he was ready, you probably would have thought a Championship team would have been the next step up, like with Cameron Archer. But then you've think about players who you could go after. Then there's some great names there, and there's some uninspiring names there as well. I think if you look at the likes of Ricardo Pereira, he's a very good right back at Leicester City. You've got somebody like a Walker Peters who isn't great, but he does like to get high up the pitch, score goals. He did yesterday.
He's doing okay for Southampton, to be fair. I mean, is it going to be the most inspiring choice among the fan base? Probably not, but he's not terrible.
No, he isn't. And then I think you can look at some foreign players as well. You've got Hector Bellerin, who isn't getting a look in at Arsenal, gone out on loan to Betis. He's always been good going forward, and he's absolutely rapid as well. You've got Gonzalo Montiel, who joined Sevilla in the summer. Good Argentinian player. I'm sure we've got a couple of Argentinians who could have a little word with you.
Sevilla have been interesting in terms of whether it's because the price wasn't met, whether it's because the players didn't want to leave, but they have been in the rare position compared to other Spanish clubs in the last few years of turning down bids for players, because there was Diego linked with Newcastle and Sevilla turned the money down. I mean, there was a release clause that Newcastle didn't meet, so it'd be interesting if they had met the clause, whether the player would have wanted to have stayed or gone. But yeah, they're second in La Liga. Sevilla, kind of outside shot of winning the La Liga title. Champions League qualification definitely on there. So I think certainly we will be casting the net far and wide for replacement, because I do think if we do sell cash, we will get somebody in. And then it'll be a choice between whether we keep Kessler as kind of the number 2 or Gilbert. I mean, I suspect we will take the money for Gilbert if Strasbourg want to keep him, or another French team, for example, seeing how well he's adapted to the league over there. Unfortunate, because he's kind of, I found him a cult hero, really, Gilbert, in terms of obviously goal against Leicester in the first leg of the semi-final. So you always have that happier memory. I mean, I do remember that away game against Southampton where, well, that was an absolutely dreadful performance. So he's guilty by association because he was playing. But yeah, an interesting transfer window ahead in the summer, and obviously an interesting one just gone. So listen to our transfer window part 1 and part 2 podcast specials to see what we were thinking at the time, which is often a question thrown at us on Twitter in terms of what are you thinking. But speaking of transfer windows, Villa are active in the transfer window, bringing players in and also players going out on loan, although Al Ghazi's probably wondering whether it was really worth it in terms of free managers in 17 days, and probably nowhere near the first team there. But a team who didn't have any action at all in terms of incoming players is our upcoming opponents at Villa Park, Leeds. They were, fair to say, having an indifferent start during the first half of the season. Picked up a couple of wins in January, a impressive win away at West Ham. Last game, 1-0 defeat at home to Newcastle, which I checked the rule book. I'm pretty sure that should mean instant relegation, losing home to Newcastle, but apparently it doesn't. So there's a bit of nervous trepidation amongst the Leeds fans. They have the underlying opinion, from what I can tell of, we trust in Bielsa. He's taken us this far, so we have to believe in him. But they are glancing nervously over their shoulders in terms of the bottom 3 and that squad depth, which has been lacking, especially up front. Patrick Bamford been injured for most of the season. Dan James has been training kind of as a makeshift number 9. He's a willing runner. He's got a bit of skill, but they'd rather have Bamford in the team. But you take all that apart, and Leeds are only 4 points behind Villa in the league table. They have played the same number of games. So a win for Leeds on Wednesday, mass fans will tell you, means that they're 1 point behind Villa. What have your thoughts been about Leeds in an overall sense so far this season?
Well, they had that awful run at the start of the season, didn't they, before turning it around and going about 7 games undefeated. Though you do fear for Leeds at times when they play that open, expansive attacking style against teams who can pick them apart. They have been known to get absolutely smashed, such as Manchester City away. That was a dreadful footballing display, wasn't it? Really, I mean, you look at some of the goals Man City scored; they were great. But if Jack Grealish can score a header against you, you know, you do start to worry. I think from a Leeds point of view, they've got the ammunition there to cause a lot of teams problems. You say Dan James. Dan James is 20 out of 20 for speed, isn't he? Really?
No, he's rapid.
You've got Bamford when he's fit, who we saw at home last season. He put us to the sword with 3 great goals for his hat trick. And then you've got Rafinha, who is their mate, Rafinha, however you want to pronounce it, who's their main man, really. And if he's ticking, Leeds tend to be ticking. They're very much a Jekyll and Hyde team, aren't they? And they've also got Calvin Phillips, who's a great presence for them. However, you do wonder with Bielsa at times, as good as a manager as he is, there's a lot of people who credit him and his style of play as having a big impact on their philosophy, such as the likes of Pochettino and Guardiola. You do have concerns at times. I mean, they've played the mobile phone formation this season, 3-3-3-1. You've heard that they'll change formation about 10 times in a game. If they're losing a game, he's likely to bring Phillips off at half time and keep him ready for the next game. I mean, he's a mad genius, really.
I think also Phillips not being fit for a lot of the season has had an impact on that Leeds midfield.
I think so. And he's such a key player for them. When you've got teams like West Ham who are looking to bridge the gap with the top 4 and they're being linked with him, and we're long-term admirers of him, you know, he'd be a great option as a number 6 for us. You don't know what to expect with Leeds. I mean, as we say, smashed us last season at home, but then they lost 1-0 to us at Ellen Road on one of the worst football pitches in Sunday League history, you know.
No, it is funny. I don't know if that is the right word. Looking back at that 3-0 Leeds win at Villa Park, 5th game of the season, Villa had won all their first 4, win that game going to go top of the Premier League. I think there was an expectation that we would just take care of business against Leeds, and we very much did not. I remember, in terms of a snapshot in time, it was the period in Birmingham whereby pubs were open, but it was table service and they shut at 10. So I think the game kicked off 8 o'clock on a Friday. So you got kind of that injury time near the end of the game, getting to 10 to 10. The pub staff are nervously looking at their watches, trying to usher me out the door. By that stage, I was like, you don't need to push me out the door. I've seen enough kind of this. But yeah, I mean, kind of Leeds obviously had a very good season, first season back in the Premier League. You know, the cliche would be second season syndrome. Mention El Ghazi in terms of that goal early on against Leeds in the return fixture. We weren't too far off Europe kind of at that point still, even though we began to stutter with Grealish being out of the team at that point. That was probably the high point in terms of that hope in the second half of the season, saying, yeah, we can pull that back. And it was very quickly went downhill kind of after that for Villa, unfortunately. But it is kind of how your mind plays tricks on you. You feel like Leeds have been in the league a lot longer than what they have. And you feel like there should be more than 2 games kind of that we played so far against them. And we haven't. We just mentioned those 2. I mean, in terms of the game that is always in the minds of Leeds and Villa fans when they meet is the game in the championship season, last championship season for Villa anyway, when it was 1-1 at Ellen Road with a slightly controversial goal, shall we say, for Leeds. And there's animosity always probably going to be between the fans as a result of that, in terms of, but they shouldn't have done it really, Leeds fans. I think it's pretty poor form on their part. And to be fair to Leeds, they let us through, apart from one player who didn't, and he got sold kind of pretty much straight after. So, it's kind of, you say all's well that ends well in terms of that. But there's always going to be that needle, and I expect that needle to be in the crowd a sellout crowd at Villa Park on Wednesday night. Do you think we can take much from the history into this game, or has time moved on too much for it to be any of a factor?
I mean, I always think of Leeds as a bit of a bogey team. I remember I really started following the Villa 94, 95, 95, 96. And they tended to beat us around that time with David Weatherall as one of the mainstays in their defence. Tony Yeboah banging in absolute belters. Had his own little goal of the season competition, didn't he?
Yep. Beat him in the League Cup. Beat him in the League Cup final, though. We'll throw that one in there.
I was going to say, recent time, the 1-1 draw is obviously the match that you think of. You remember where you were at that time. But the big game is that 3-0 win over Leeds at Wembley. Going there and thinking, yeah, we should win, but Leeds have got a good team there. The young Scottish striker called Andy Gray, not to be mistaken with the other Andy Gray, who was in form and showing a lot of promise at that time. Gary McAllister hitting passes from one side of the Wembley pitch to the other side of the Wembley pitch. Ian Hart, Gary Kelly, they had some great players. But we had Savo Milosevic with that screamer. Ian Taylor with his, I'm going to close my eyes and just swing my foot at it. And Dwight York in one of the best veins of form that we've ever seen a Villa striker. As well as that game, you've also got the FA Cup run when we got to the final and lost to Chelsea, and we beat them 3-2 at home with Benito Carbone's hat-trick, and that one goal in particular in front of the Holt end from about 40 yards out where he looked like he was going to swing across it.
Yep, great performance there.
It's one of them, but for all those good results, I can remember us beating them the year after we won the League Cup. In the League Cup, I think it's the third or fourth round. Dwight York shot from the halfway line, straight from kick-off in the second half, and we won 2-1. He didn't score that goal, but we won 2-1. Gareth Southgate, I think, potentially got both of our goals. But there's been just as many bad results against Leeds as well. They are a bit of a bogey team. You don't know what to expect with them, as you say. Hearing that they're only 4 points behind us is a bit of a, oh, bloody hell. However, I think that you could safely say that Leeds are in a little bit of a look over your shoulder relegation battle, could be on its way, potentially, if they don't pick up points soon. I don't feel the same for us, especially with Steven Gerrard coming in, getting us playing in a certain way and getting us to grind out results like we did against Everton. Go and beat teams like Leicester and Palace. You sort of feel like for us, it's an upward trajectory really in the league, whereas Leeds, they're still, they've still got a bit of ice underneath them. It's all still a little bit slippy. You don't think that they're going to kick the bucket with the Premier League this year, but they need to be careful.
Yeah, I think the run of fixtures Villa have got over the next month, which we will be talking about in more detail in the review and preview episodes we do have coming up in February and March, means that any looking over the shoulder you may say Villa should mathematically have, I think we will be well clear of any potential issues by the end of this running games. I know Fact Checker fans do pore over the contents of our podcast, so just so you're listening, I'm going to point out Ian Hart didn't play in that League Cup final, so you don't need to let us know. Feverishly in my ear, but I would tell you one player who did play for Leeds, and if we were going to have a named starting 11 competition, which we won't, I reckon Leeds fans might forget who played in centre midfield on that day. You mentioned Gary McAllister, he did play. Remember Mark Ford? Yeah, he played centre midfield that day, apparently. So you're never getting that one. But moving on to the present day, where Mark Ford probably won't be playing for Leeds on Wednesday. I mean, I know they're lacking players, but even so, wouldn't have expected that call up. Players who will be playing. I mean, we are recording a few days before the game, so there may be some last minute injury news coming out, of Villa Park. With that disclaimer aside, how do you see the team lining up same team against Everton if there is the possibility to go the same team, or do you think if there is a full squad that there will be changes?
I think there'll be changes. I think there'll be one change, to be honest with you, providing we've got the full squad. Now, because of how he's done in the little game friendlies that we've had with getting 2 goals, I can see Watkins keeping his place. He's obviously going to be feeling confident. Danny Ings scored, I think, and had a goal disallowed against Brentford. I mean, I'd go with Ings because of the natural finishing and whatnot, though Watkins' press may cause a bit more of a problem towards Leeds, especially if they're vulnerable at the back. I think the one potential change that we see, and, I'm going to get some pelters for this. I'm sure there may be a comment or two on YouTube. There may be comments on the Twitter page. I could potentially see Douglas Luiz coming out of the side and Callum Chambers coming in. Now, the reason for that, and I don't think it should happen, I think Douglas Luiz should play. He's done very well this season, and he's done well for us in a role that he doesn't want to play. But Leeds have that expansive style. They like to play the ball around quickly, and you've got to get stuck into them, really, which I don't think Douglas Luiz will do as much and won't offer us as much defensively as maybe Callum Chambers could if he's available to play. He played against Mould. He's getting used to the team. You put him in, you get him to break up the play, and then you get him to drop in between Concert and Mings so that the likes of Cash and Luke Din can push forward. That might be more suited to this game. So that's the only potential starting 11 amendment I can see. What about you? What do you reckon?
I can't see Chambers playing, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's interesting in terms of he has played those couple of warm-up games. I do think mainly just to try and get him up to speed with the squad, get some minutes between his legs. Between his legs? In his legs. I mean, I think that's a different training regime that maybe Gerrard's got involved off the field. But in terms of kind of, you expect the centre-back partnership to remain the same, and defensive mid. Yeah, he did play there for Fulham. What was a few years ago now, and what I would say is if you are going to play Chambers in that defensive midfield role, you have got the perfect run of games coming up to bed him in terms of if you are looking at games where you think Villa are maybe not necessarily going to be as much under the cosh, and you've got a bit more time to play yourself in kind of to form and fitness, then yeah, the run, the 5 games we've got coming up, you're probably not going to get much of a better pick than that. So if he was brought in as a backup for defensive midfield or to play defensive midfield, then yeah, it will happen in this run. I don't see it. I think we'll probably, depending on fitness concerns, play the same team as we did against Everton. Players seem to be coming into form or remaining in form. We talked about Ramsey really coming into significant run of form under Gerrard. You got McGinn, played very well against Everton, I thought, especially in the first half, setting the tempo for the game. Mentioned Watkins, few goals in warm-up games again, but you mentioned kind of his pressing ability. Combine that with being able to get on the score sheet, I think he'll keep his place. And then evidently our South American contingent of Coutinho and Buendia, if they are fit, you expect them to play. Hopefully Coutinho's got a bit more match fitness under his legs playing for Brazil. I think he tired inevitably and understandably in the second half against Everton. But if he's able to put them in the top corner whilst only being like 80% fit, they can't even imagine what he can do 100%. And I think there could be some damage inflicted on upcoming opponents. But it's nice to be able to say in terms of we don't have to change a winning team. Hopefully we'll be saying it a few more times over the next month. And I can see Chukwuemeka coming off the bench again, getting some more minutes. I think he's looked lively in the warm-up games that we've played recently. And I think there is that drip-feeding hope that getting more minutes, get him to sign a deal. I think that's the aim. I don't think we're going to be going the other way in terms of saying if you don't sign, you don't play. I think we'll be trying to keep him on side and get him back on board to the very end, because, you know, in terms of the glimpses we have seen, he's going to be a very good player, and hopefully with us. But I think if we are able to play the same team, we will. I mean, it'd be interesting. You mentioned, do we change kind of shape tactics to play against Leeds? We've mentioned him earlier, Rafinha. I think that's going to be a large part of if he's fit or not. I mean, he also played for Brazil, got taken off. There's it's been kept under wraps, understandably, by Leeds as regards how injured he is, because I don't, if he is at all, because I don't think they want to give us too much of a clue. But if he plays, the game goes through him, and you can, from a Leeds perspective, and you can see in terms of getting somebody sat on him. Could say Douglas Luiz knows his game in terms of a bit better, being Brazilian. You could say he just knows where he's going to be 2 seconds before it kicks him. So that'll be an interesting matchup if that is on the field. But I think in terms of, we've got the options, we've got those certainly attacking options, and I suppose leading into the ultimate question, is that going to be enough for Villa to win the game? I know you've ran a poll on our Twitter page, and the results were pretty much unanimous in terms of how the fans think the outcome of this game is going to be.
Yep, Leeds win. No, Villa win.
Was it like 93%, I think, of the fans backing a Villa win?
It was high. It was high. And I don't blame them for thinking that we will win. We're in a good place at the moment. The win against Everton going into that 2-week break for us obviously did the players the world of good. Some of them being told that they can rest up. Tyrone Mings and John McGinn, I believe, were both allowed a little bit of a holiday. I'm sure some of the other players were as well. Buendia is obviously going to be buoyed from making his debut for Argentina. Coutinho with his goal. Emi Martinez with his fantastic saves in the match that he played, kept another clean sheet. I think that's 10 in 16 games for him now for Argentina. Made one amazing reflex save from one of his defenders who nearly scored an own goal, though I believe he got pulled back for offside. And then, of course, had those celebrations that he got told off for, where he was behind the opposition goalie with the Copa America trophy, waving it around feverishly. So I think all of our players are in good places at the moment. And when you see that there's youngsters as well being put into the squad with the first teamers to give them more exposure, probably because there's a few that are being rested or they're not there, it's giving everybody a lift, you know, that Gerrard's promoting this sort of winning mentality and this positive culture within the club, which Dino was doing before, you know. So I think I definitely agree with the however many percent it was that said that we'd win. And I'd be confident that we'll keep a clean sheet again. I think we're gonna start seeing the clean sheets coming back into our games, especially after the Everton one and that onslaught that we had on our goal in the second half.
Yep, dealt with well.
Yeah, and I think we get a couple. I mean, Leeds, let's be honest, if you could create a lot of chances against them and you could score a few goals against them as well. I don't think we're there yet in regards to doing that against the Leeds. However, I've said before, there's going to come a time when we absolutely spank someone and we put 3 or 4 past them. I don't think it's just yet. I think a 2-0 win where we get a 2-0 lead quite early in the game, you know, 6 within the hour, and then we're able to just pass the ball around, play possession based and keep our shape, you know, and hopefully get more minutes for Akane rather than just the obligatory, there you go, here's 10 minutes at the end. No, we can give you 20 minutes. We can bring Danny Ings on for 20 minutes at the end as well. We can give Chambers a feel for the team. Yeah, I think it'll be a comfortable 2-0.
Well, there's cliches about London buses or any buses. You wait for ages and then 2 or 3 come along at once, because we had gone the whole season without predicting the same result until last week, or not last week. It was further back, the last game against Everton, where we both predicted the Villa win and we both predicted 2-1. I think it's going to be 2-0. I agree with you in terms of pretty much you've summed up exactly what I was going to say in terms of, I think we're going to keep a clean sheet. I think in terms of, especially if Rafinha's not fit, then yeah, I think that is a significant hit in terms of Leeds' ability to get anything out of this game. I think, as you said, positive factor around the club. There's a feeling that Villa have improved during the transfer window. The squad has got better, and that appears to have permeated itself to the players and also the fans. The fact the fans believe it. You've got Digne coming in, making an instant impact. You got Coutinho coming in, making an instant impact. And in January, two players coming in and doing that, that's automatically elevates your window up there in a mid-season situation whereby it's notoriously difficult to get, players who can make that instant impact. So full house at Villa Park on Wednesday. I think we're going to win comfortably, as you said. I mean, in terms of, I also agree that I think the hammering's coming in terms of during this run. I think we are going to hit at least 3 or 4 past somebody. But Leeds, there's the primary concern, just get the business done. As we saw last season in the home game, they're a dangerous team if you underestimate them. So even though we've spent the last 20 minutes underestimating them, hopefully the players on Wednesday will not fall into the same trap as we did. And I back us to get the job done. I mean, in terms of, evidently Gerrard can't go on the pitch himself, but I think he'll be leaving it in the players' minds and no doubt in their ears before the game that nothing less than 3 points is to be expected from this game. And I think we're going to get them. So 2-0 for me as well. So unanimity in the talk of the Trinity towers here, and it worked last time. So, we have 100% record in terms of when we both had the same results. So hopefully that will continue. And well, speaking of 100%, what is 100% record that we've got is producing great podcasts, if we do say ourselves, because, well, who else will if we don't? But go and have a listen back to our archive of treasured thoughts and memories in terms of the transfer window, part 1, part 2. See what we got right, see what we got wrong, see what we predicted for the future. Check out our specials that we've done during the course of the season with our Overseas Lions, with our Andy Gray special, all on the YouTube channel at Talk of the Trinity. You can be one of the 100+ subscribers now. So what an exclusive club that will be. Check us out on the YouTube channel at Talk Trinity. Check us out on the audio providers, Amazon, Apple, Spotify, Google, some other ones that I'll leave my co-host to inform you on at the end in the roundup. But before I pass you over to Mr. Talk of the Trinity himself, may I just take this opportunity to say thank you for listening. Hope you enjoyed the game on Wednesday, whether you're at Villa Park or watching on TV, or any other means that we won't investigate too much. And speak to you soon. See, or you can listen to us again next week. Cheers for now.
Yeah, once again, thank you very much for watching us on the YouTube channel, you lucky devils. Thank you for listening to us on Apple, Google, Spotify, Deezer, Freezer, Fridge, Cupboard, whichever ones you are listening to us on, or whether you've just got really big ears and you can hear us chatting crap in Bourneville at the time of recording. All of the support is very much appreciated. We'll be back next time when we are reviewing the Leeds United game and previewing the upcoming game against Newcastle. I'm sure Baz will have a lot of positive things to say about Newcastle going into that match.
I like Newcastle.
The match target derby, even though he can't play. But until then, Cheers, Tar. Thank you very much. And Villa till I die. Up the Villa.